you, and you are welcome along to another Monaghan Way with us here. It is episode 28. Just to give a little background, for those maybe that are taking this in on our YouTube channel, yes, I am sitting in a darkened room with an emergency light above my head. There was a planned outage actually here in our studios that I had forgotten about, but thankfully we do have enough power here to be able to record, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by our commentary team that will be looking forward to the Ulster Senior Club final this weekend, Scotstown taking on Kilcoo. That's Fergal, Monaghan and Kieran, Kearns. Now, we will be joining them in a moment or two, but before we do that, I know Fergal made a trip down to Armagh during the course of last week to the media evening that was hosted by the Ulster GA Council down there, and he spoke to Marty Corey, who of course is the manager of the Kilcoo team, well known within the county here, a former Clontibrick clubman. We also have Damien McCardle, who is the captain of the side, but we start by hearing from David McCaig, the manager of the Scotstown team.
Absolutely delighted to be joined here by Scotstown manager Dave McCaig. We're down here at the launch for this Ulster final where you're going to be taking on the mighty Kilcoo. But look, I spoke to you a couple of days ago in the same area here. What a match. What a physical match. What a long drawn out affair over 2 weeks. But it was great preparation, but you now have to get yourself ready and come down and get ready for the task at hand, which is this final.
That's it, Fergal. I suppose the nature of the championship is that there's always another test coming, and that's the prize for being successful in I suppose our 9th championship game of the year was last weekend, and the prize now is we get to play a 10th game, and that's something to be welcomed and to be grateful for as well. So we love our football in Scotstown, and we're delighted to get extending the 2025 season into December. And we're gonna really enjoy the preparations and enjoy the challenge of the game itself too.
I'll go back about because we've been with you all the way along with this. We followed the Monaghan Championship, and the journey here has been ups and there's been downs, been really tested. We talked on Sunday after the match about the county final against Enniskeane, extra time, how it prepared you, and every game it's a game of inches. It all leads up, and we're here now. You know, it has been a great preparation to county championship, winning it, and then of course the battles you've had with Newbridge.
There's no doubt about it. I think I don't think people appreciate how competitive the Monaghan Championship is, and I would have said very early in this year's Monaghan Championship that the group we were in was going to be a really good road test for us. When you look at the 5 teams that ended up in our group, and that's how it transpired. Was a good test against Clontibrick. True, we're the better team for most of the game down in St Mellons. And Cromartin in their own way gave us a good test as well, and then obviously we were beaten above in Cardiff, so those tests were really, really formative for us, and I suppose we used the lessons from that to try and develop ourselves and improve ourselves as we went along. And I think that the Monaghan Championship is a fantastic breeding ground for players to develop themselves and teams to develop themselves before they go on it.
Yeah. Now you have a 2-week break into this final. You're certainly going to be battle hardened. There's no doubt about it, because Newbridge chested you for a game and a half, of possibly 2 games, I suppose, in the space of a week. How's the team looking injury wise and stuff like that?
Yeah,
are you in good shape?
The focus immediately after the game shifted to a recovery on Sunday and Monday, and I suppose we're in the assessment phase. I suppose of 1 or 2 little knocks that fellas would have picked up on Sunday, so we know more tomorrow night when we get ourselves onto grass and then see how the bodies respond. But look, at enthusiasm is a wonderful ingredient to have in a squad, and I can sense the enthusiasm in our squad from the start of the year, really. And I don't think a couple of niggles are going to impact upon fellas' readiness for the game on Saturday week.
Like, there's no doubt about this Scotstown club, not just this Scotstown team, is a storied history club. There's a serious culture now, and it doesn't happen overnight. It comes in waves. You've had that great team at the 70s and the 80s. Last Ulster Championship win was in 89. You've been there in 2015, 2018, 2023. I suppose there's experience there, but you've won your championship, and now I suppose Ulster is a nut you'd love to crack.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, but the nut we want to crack is the next game, and that is a cliche, Fergal, but I think we don't have the luxury of having any other focus, really, and it just happens that the next game is the last game in the Ulster Club Championship, but even if you win that, there's another challenge coming down the tracks as well, so that's just the nature of it. I suppose you mentioned we're very lucky in the tradition that have been left for us in our club, and the great men, the great women who have contributed to building that culture and building that sort of aspiration for the current generation. Sure, we love trying to live up to it, and hopefully that by us doing that, we can leave a legacy and an aspiration for the next generation to live up to. And I think that's healthy for the whole parish and whole community.
Yeah, and I know you personally, how much it means to you and how much it means to all of it. But when I saw the final whistle, and the final whistle went in the Athletic Grounds on Sunday evening, the Scotstown people, it just, you could feel how much it meant and just how proud they are of this team.
Absolutely. The football club is a real focal point of our community, as it is for many communities. But I think for us, it gives us a real sense of purpose. We had a fantastic drive this year, Fergal, where we went out selling tickets around the province to raise some more money to finish off the development in Kilmore. And I just felt that the social cohesion among all the members of our community and club in that drive was really, really evident. And I think that has been really, again, formative for everybody as well, that it has bonded us all together really tightly as a club. And the senior team are probably the only representation of the club that are left playing this year. So that's everyone's focus, and the supporters are really behind us, and we feel their support and their energy, and we're feeding off it.
Yeah, and that goes for county as well. There's a real sense of everyone wants Scotstown to get this job done and win this next game. As you say, it just happens to be that final. But you're great representatives from Monaghan, and that's an immense source of pride for Monaghan people and for Scotstown people. But look, I'll talk about the Ulster final and the Ulster. I suppose you played Kilcoo in the semi-final last year. It was a tough day. How much bearing do these games? Obviously, there's learnings in everything you do.
I think you've captured it well, Fergal. There's learnings in everything you do. We'll take great learnings from that game last year. We'll take great learnings from some of our senior league games this year. We'll take great learnings from our group games in Monaghan, and the knockout games against Latin and Clontibbert, and the great test that Inniskeen put in front of us as well. So, and as we use all of those learnings into our preparation for game 10.
Yeah, I feel it's different though. I mean, last year there's new rules. Scotstown have added new players to their team. You still have your own players, the guys who took those penalties and lads who wanted to take penalties, and you have a nice blend there. And I mean, you probably couldn't be happier with how these guys have applied themselves to the team.
I couldn't be happier, I suppose. But within that, I'm thinking of players who have carried injuries. Sean McCaffrey, was missed out in a good chunk of the season through a nasty hamstring injury. Young lad Mark McCaffrey, again, I think would have been a huge asset to us as well. So the addition of those two players would make me happier. Fergal and Phillips picked up a bit of an injury as well. So it's just, I feel for those players that if they were available, they would strengthen our squad even more, and so they'll be deriving more enjoyment out of it. So look we're happy with the health of our squad. We're happy with the players that we have, and we're happy with how the squad is really, really gelled together. I was talking to another reporter a few minutes ago about the amount of breaches we had in the first game against Clontibbert.
Yeah,
we had 7 fellas away with Monaghan this year, and that game against Clontibbert was really a group of fellas who hadn't played together, thrown together, and it manifested itself in a fairly chaotic performance at times. So to watch them gel together since that has been really positive, and say the relationships and the connections between players is as a manager, you sit back and watch these things develop, and there's a good chemistry at the moment, and good fun too.
Yeah, it must be very satisfying for you as a manager to see that happen. But look, I'll go back to the home, to Scotstown. I suppose the fact that you've done so well domestically, 10 in the last 13, and Kilcoo have won so much as well, will that help you in your preparation for this final? Because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of talk. You've got to remember there's a job to be done in hand, while at the same time enjoying these occasions, because they are very important and not many people get to enjoy them.
Yeah, that experience is great for us. But in the context of this game, it's not going to be any great advantage, because the opposition have equally, if not more, experience. So yeah, that'll be a help to us, but it'll not give us any advantage. And this is, it just means that fellas within the dressing room can spot where trends are happening, maybe that could be negative, and then they can spot where trends are happening that are positive, and maybe encourage those, and maybe try and put a stop to maybe some of the negative ones. But I have complete trust and faith in our group of players that I say that their purpose is the football match, and their focus will be on performing the football match and getting ready for it. So I think that there's definitely positives that for us as well.
Absolutely delighted to be joined here by Kilcoo manager Marty Corey. Marty, great to chat to you here, a Monaghan man in the Ulster final as well. You're playing a Monaghan team, and it's a unique one.
It is. It's different. I suppose obviously going up against David too, someone I would have soldiered with and played with and friends with and all that there and coached with. So it's going to be a big day.
Yeah, of course. Look, it's been pretty good this year. Loch Macrory, a 16-11 win. Aaron Gale's a strong win as well. And then, you're in and you have that 3-week layoff because of, out of your hands because of the situation in Omagh the week before. So how have you dealt with that?
Listen, even on that, I suppose I think everybody was glad that game was called off, because look what we got on Sunday. What a game of football. We wouldn't have got that in the second half in Omagh.
Yeah.
As disappointing as it was that the game was called off, at least we got what we we got there on Sunday. Listen, in relation to the extra week, it's not ideal, but we just have to embrace it. That's just things happen, and it'd be no different if the game went to extra time. I had to play an extra week or whatever. But no, listen, we'll embrace it. There'll be no excuses on Saturday, Saturday week. We'll embrace this as best we can.
And I suppose you're dealing with a group of players, and you know as well, going into these big games, they've been there and worn the t-shirt. And that has to be a big help to block out the outside noise and all these events, and that you take it in your stride.
Yeah, listen, there's these are the things you just have to do, the media duties. But yeah, listen, we in Kilcoo, they're in their own wee bubble up there, way out in their own. They don't probably pass much remarks to media that or anything this is said. I'm sure some of them don't even pick up the paper. But listen, no different than Scotstown's preparations. We're all focused on what we need to do, and that's the only thing we'll be focusing on.
Well, look, I coming here, I looked at last year's result. Kilcoo beat Scotstown beat Kilcoo the year before. Last year's Kilcoo beat Scotstown 5-10 to 14 points, shipped 5 goals there. I suppose both teams will have learned a lot from that, particularly Scotstown. Will that have any bearing on this?
I don't think so, because it's a new game. It's a completely different game now. It's Scotstown. You can see how good they're playing with the new rules. They're playing really well, and I don't think that this game is going to be anything like last year. The goal fest, possibly you could call it, but I think it'll be a really tough, tight game the whole way through.
Yeah, and both teams have adapted to new rules. Probably slightly different Scotstown team than even in a year ago. They've added a few young players and maybe got caught out with Kilcoo's pace a bit last year.
Yeah, well, look at the young boys they've brought in. Like, some of these boys have played in All-Ireland final for Monaghan, and they look like leaders out in the field. Some of them have put in serious performances throughout the Monaghan Championship, and even in Ulster Club, they're up against the teams that they're up against and playing the way they are. I'm sure Darren and the boys will be over the moon to see these young boys in doing a bit more running for them. But yeah, they've been a breath of fresh air for Scotstown.
I think that's the brilliant part of this Ulster Championship and this club. Every team's a winner, really. I mean, you're coming up against teams who are seasoned winners and know how to win, and that's what makes these games so tight. Like, the margins are tiny.
Yeah, well, listen, I said it at the start. In the first Ulster Club game, every team that wins their county is a good team, and if they get that first win, momentum can take them the whole way. And it's just the hardest thing to do in Ulster Club is get the first win. And I think when you get that there, momentum can take you. So I think in our case, we were lucky we got a good first win against Lochmargory. So we were able to use that as a platform then into our next game. So listen, we've got here, we're in an Ulster final on merit, as is Scotstown, and we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely delighted to be joined here in the Armagh City Hotel at the launch of this final. Damien, your side are there for the second time. You were there in 2023, you were there in 2018. But I'll talk first about that semi-final. What an absolute battle. We're in the same city where it happened. It was only a couple of days ago. How's the body?
Yeah, look, it's always easier when you win. So it is now. If you're feeling very, very sore now, it was on the other side. But yeah, look, it's great to get over the line. Momentum. Just the way the game's gone now, momentum's a massive thing, and like weather conditions all factor into it. And look, great to come out on the right side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose it was a funny game in the sense that you played half and you had to go and reset and play that full game, and the lead up to it. But now that it's all over and the dust is settling, as you say, you won the game, it's probably brilliant preparation for this final.
Oh yeah, like you take the likes of the game last Sunday in a skiing, like it's all big tests, and if you can keep coming through them, no matter what way you come through them, it stands to you.
Yeah, and now a couple of weeks now, it's going to be on Saturday night, same venue as well. Your job, you go about your business quietly, you get on with it. You're always tasked with the job, the marking the danger man. Is it something you relish, or do you just, whatever the job David gives you, you just go for it?
Look, yeah, like I'd probably relish it, but no matter what David or any manager tell me, I just go and do it. If it helps the team, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. And as captain, it seems on that team there's an awful lot of leaders. It must be an absolute privilege for you to be the captain of this current Scotstown team.
Oh yeah, like it's a massive privilege. There's a lot of leaders, and even the likes of them younger boys that have come in, they're leading too, like, and it's just great to be there.
I mean, this, Damien, I suppose you've been around a long time. You played Kilcoo last year, but finals take on a life of their own as well. does last year in playing Kilcoo? Obviously, there's new rules this year, but how much of a bearing would that have in your build up to this game?
Look at it'll probably have no bearing. Yes, there's horde definitely there. It was a long winter, but in the terms of the game itself, it's new rules, new conditions, and we just have to focus on ourselves.
What I noticed as well, that game, there was a serious breeze in the semi-final. The new rules, the 2-pointers, they're a massive, and they're an advantage and they can be a disadvantage. It's tough as a defender. You have to be really disciplined because you can be punished outside that 2-point arc, and of course, if you let them in, they're dangerous as well.
Yeah, like that's just what I was saying. Like they just add to that momentum swing, and as a defensive, like in the defensive side of it, you just need to know when to engage and when not to engage, and it's just getting that balance right.
I was listening to your manager, David. There's a great culture and a great history in Scotstown, and how do you feel? I suppose being part of it. It's probably a great honour, but there's a responsibility to go out now and perform in that final.
Oh yeah, and look, it's great to see the community on build-ups to days like this, and you just like to get over the line just to see what it'll be like afterwards, just for everybody.
Yeah, well, look, you've been absolutely brilliant representatives from Monaghan over the years, and again this year. And I suppose the championship itself, you mentioned earlier in the skiing game, you've had some serious tests all the way through, but you're in now, and you've passed them all, and now the biggest test to come in 2 weeks' time on the 13th on Saturday, and I suppose you can't wait. But as a representative of Monaghan, you couldn't have been happy with how it's gone.
Oh yeah. Look, you just want to go and represent yourself and the county as the best you can, and thankfully we've done that. We've torn it up and we've performed, and hopefully we'll perform Saturday week.
And there you go, indeed. Great to hear from those lads. A real Monaghan flavour to this one. And speaking of Monaghan, we'll sure go to the man that has Monaghan as a surname and Monaghan in his blood, Fergal Monaghan. You were down there, Fergal. I know that was a couple of days after that incredible encounter, that semi-final win, extra time, penalties over Newbridge, and even listening to Damien McCardle, there was a soreness in the body, but he said that was tempered so much by the fact that they're in another decider.
Yeah, battle hardened now. The Scotstown team kind of, the penalties, they took it in their stride, and they are where they want to be. I just think it's an unusual situation. Scotstown have come through a tough Monaghan championship, and David McCaig alluded to that twice when I interviewed him after the game and there in Armagh during the launch. That county final against Enniskeane was tough. They lost to Carduff in the championship. They drew with Clontibbret. It hasn't been straightforward, and they've played much in the championship without Ryan O'Toole and Conor McCarthy. So they're kind of coming back now as well. And I just think Scotstown have come through some serious, and myself and Kieran had a great, was so enjoyable there in that match, that Newbridge game. And Newbridge Kilcoo will pose a lot of the problems Newbridge have posed, only to a higher level. It's almost like a computer game. You're coming to the last level now. You're the big boss, Kilcoo, you have to beat. And they'll pose the breaking ball, the ferocity and the tackle, the turnover. That's what they're going to key. And obviously, we're going to come into the nuts and bolts of the game now in a minute. No better Matt and Kieran to go through it. But I just feel that the extra 2 weeks, maybe Kilcoo mightn't have been tested like Scotland have. Having said that, Kilcoo have won 7 in a row in Down. They've been in 13 Ulster finals. I think they've won 7, something like that. They've won an All-Ireland in 2021. There's not as much pressure, although they have lost a couple. This will be their third Ulster final in a row, and they've lost the last 2. So there's a bit of pressure there, but there's also pressure on Scotstown. But certainly from Scotstown point of view, they're where they want to be. They've been battle-hardened. They've had a serious run out with Newbridge. Not only, they've basically had 2 games against Newbridge in a week, and now they have their 2 weeks to get ready. And it'll be much welcome because you have Conor McCarthy kind of coming back, Ryan O'Toole, there's back. A few injury problems maybe that won't be back. Young lads who David alluded to there, some great players that they won't have. But this is a different setup and a different game than last year. New rules, a faster, more youthful, exuberant Scotstown. And Kieran, you alluded to it in our commentary, how Scotstown have learned from that system failure, David McCaig called it last year, when they conceded 5 goals against Kilcoo, how they protect that 2-point arc. And look, there's going to be a breeze, there's going to be a wind, and we're going to have great players on show. Kilcoo wouldn't be noted for their 2-point shooting, but they're brilliant footballers, and we saw what Newbridge did when they got the wind in the last 8 minutes, 1-5 without reply. This game's going to be a belter. Well, I'll let Kieran go through the nuts and bolts with Noled in, but Scotstown are in a good place.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's probably just a perfect time, Kieran, maybe to bring you in. You were sitting alongside Fergal that evening watching it, and David did say it, as Fergal noted there, a system failure last year. So you have to credit this Scotstown team to come back from that. And I'm not going to say rebuild, but certainly restructure. Yes, maybe the rules helped them, but the panel of players and the youth that just became available to them that they were able to bring in and to bring themselves back to where they are.
Yeah, a lot going on there, I suppose, from everything. Just listening to Fergal around the Scotstown dynamic. Like a lot of people that you talk to are all referring back to last year's game. You know, Scotstown League 5 goals. And what I remind people of is that last year a completely different game. You know, the changes of the rules have overnight changed that whole dynamic, and all of a sudden, it's and the new input of young personnel into the Scotstown team have just changed them, including the rules overnight. And Scotstown have Fergal's right from the. I have been watching them from the quarter final of the Monaghan Championship, and they've just got better and better and better. Even though they've been tested to their limits, they've come over them. And the one thing that I'd say about Scotstown is, if David was referring to a system failure, I thought it was more of a lack of identity. You know, they were struggling in terms of what did they go man on man, did they sit back defensively? There's no lack of identity this year. There's a clear structure in place within this Scotstown team. You'll always see either Kieran Hughes or Darren Hughes sitting back, minding the fort, if not both of them. And it's interesting that they used Kieran and maybe Darren in there because they're both real leaders. And when you have a leader inside that defensive structure, you know, everybody else around it lifts their game, especially when their boys are maybe talking to them vocally inside that structure. Communication's critical. But they're a different animal this year too. And I did speak about the younger generation bringing that pace that perhaps they were lacking a wee bit last year. They're certainly not lacking it this year. You know, they've blissed their place all around, and they'll match Kilcoo for that. And in terms of Kilcoo, look, we all know what they bring, and Fergal has referred to Newbridge already. Newbridge are very, very like Kilcoo, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win an Ulster title in the next year or two, because they have the quality, probably lacking the wee bit of experience. So Kilcoo are Newbridge all over, but with more experience, obviously, and that's the key to Kilcoo. I mean, I was looking at the odds earlier on, like Kilcoo are only slight favourites ahead of Scotstown. So the bookies are, you know, they're never that far away. It's a toss of a coin, this one. It certainly won't be the same as what we witnessed last year. I can't see Scotstown conceding that amount of goals again.
Yeah, that was a lesson learned. And in fairness, anytime you talk to the management of the players, they would have hurt after that Kilcoo performance, but they would always tell you that was in the past. They're looking to the future. It wouldn't have been concerning them. But you'd imagine over the winter, over January, February, March, April, May, the last couple of months, that has to have been playing in the head. That has to be in the thought, we need to get back here and we need to prove ourselves again. And to be coming even with that in your armoury, knowing what you're going to be facing, but knowing how you've prepared now for what you have to face as well. I'm not saying they're using it as a stick to beat themselves, but they have to be using it as maybe motivation.
Yeah, well, definitely a siege mentality of nothing else.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who you are or what you are. When you come away from a defeat of that manner, it does sit with you deep down. It sits with you, and it's always there looking to come out. And there's no doubt about it that Scotstown have that siege mentality, because it was evident in every game they played this year. Like, I was always flabbergasted and so surprised about the intensity and the hunger that Scotstown took in the Monaghan Championship, where you'd always expect the opposition to do that against Scotstown. Scotstown were always winning that battle in terms of hunger, and that's coming, there's no doubt about it, from deep down with that loss last year against Kilcoo. But they're right to say that it is in the past. You know, the game has changed, the rules have changed. It's a new game, it's a new season, new final, and the way Scotstown have been going, Lady Luck's on their side as well. I genuinely think they'll get over the line on Saturday evening.
Fergal, it's interesting, the rules, and we've touched on them a couple of times. Scotstown, by far, from a club perspective, the one team that have really adapted to it. And I was talking to somebody about this, and they said, well, it's only but natural that we're going to adapt. Sure, half of Scotstown is your county team, let it be at minor, under 20, or at senior level. but you still had to bring that back to the club game. And it's interesting, David talked about in their first championship game against Clontubert, when they were only maybe getting themselves adapted back once more, they had quite a number of infringements in regards to the rules, and they've just tidied that up so much since then.
Yeah, they're so slick. I was Kieran, you remember that bit where Rory Beggan comes up and it's almost simultaneous. The other player goes backwards, whoever it is. It's just all starting to gel as you'd expect. Look, we're at the top of the mountain now. This is the best of the best in Scotstown and Kilcoo. And Scotstown are a credit. Like, I was talking to somebody up here in Meath, and Scotstown are a household name. Like, people know who Scotstown are in club level. Like, they're up there, top 5 teams in the country. But that's all hearsay. They don't care about all they care about is this one. Look, it all comes down to, I think these new rules are brilliant, but it does come down to, we have 2 serious operators in the goals, in Niall Kane and Rory Beggan, totally different players. But Niall Kane, don't underestimate this guy's kickouts. He can put the ball through the eye of a needle. He's going to be brilliant. The kickouts, I think, are going to be very interesting. And Kieran, you will, but will Kilcoo allow? I think Kilcoo will want Scotstown to build from the back. I don't think Kilcoo will want Rory Beggan to get a 70-metre kick, which is going to go over the top, go into the hands of Kieran Hughes or Darren Hughes, set up Michael McCarville, who buried it in the back of the net. That goal that they scored against Newbridge, Michael McCarville, special mention, playing the football of his life, 1-3 against Newbridge, but he scored that goal. That came from a 70-metre kick out when Newbridge pushed up in the kick out. Kilcoo aren't the tallest of teams. They want the breaking ball. I'm thinking, are they going to allow or tease Scotstown at times in this game? Particularly, there's going to be a win. There's always a win these days. But are they going to allow Scotstown get possession close to their goals out on the wing and then push then and try and get that turnover, which they absolutely thrive on? They're like a Mickey Hart's Tyrone team. You remember when Darragh O'Shea used to catch the ball for Kerry, and when he'd land on the ground, he was surrounded like Gulliver and Lilliput to be all around him, and he'd lose the ball. But that's going to be, for me, is very interesting. We talked about 2-pointers as well with the win. Like, Rory Beggan has scored 16 2-pointers, but even when Rory Beggan hasn't been at his best, as in the county final, I think he only scored 2 points that day. Other men stepped up. Conor McCarthy with 3 points in extra time. Even Jack McCarron, who had a very quiet game by his standards. The only guy, in fact, Kieran, you said it in commentary, he didn't get any shots away in normal time, but he scored 2 points in extra time. So, but for me, and I think you're going to come to it now here, the kickouts and the midfield battle, and it does come down to that between the 265s, these Kilcoo guys are ravenous in the breaking ball. I wonder, will they want Scotstown to go short of the kickout?
Well, if we look back to last year, right, and we just take that dynamic, because that hasn't changed really that much in terms of the kickout has changed. Yes, more than 80% of kickouts are going long now rather than short. But if we look at Kilcoo's kick out last year, they went short, and they built that pace from deep. Scotstown cannot allow that kick out short this year. They need to be ultra tight. I'm talking about Jack McCarron, the inside forward men, need to be ultra tight to their men, because Kilcoo, that's the action that they strive on. They build from deep, and as soon as they hit the half-back line, they're gone. It's serious pace, and they're coming in 2s and 3s at you. And at that stage, it's too late. The damage is done. You need to push right up on them, in their face on the 13-yard line. Don't let the short kick out. Let it go long and contest it out there, rather than letting them build, giving them possession and letting them drive forward. As I say, as soon as they hit their half-back line, they're going in 2s and 3s, and the game's over. It's too late. Yeah, it's damage limitation then at that stage. In terms of the Kilcoo, what will they do? I think you're 100% right, Fergal. They will let Rory Beggan go short, and that they'll be happy to sit back and try to turn you over and counter-attack you the same way that they do with the short kick out. They'll try and take you onto their own 45, the edge of that big arc, try and overturn you and hit you at pace 2 and 3s. Critical for Scotstown that if they're in that position, that ball must go dead, either a score or a wide. They can't be getting turned over in them sort of areas, because they know that what Kilcoo possess in that sort of instance is complete danger. So the ball must go dead, and don't take the ball in the tackle. I think that'll be critically important with Scotstown. I just hope that they push up on the kick out and don't let that shot run away.
And what are they going to do with Rory then coming out the field, Kieran? That's the one thing, is the question that always comes up. What do you do with Rory? Because that to me has been a big part of Scotstown's play, and you touched on it, Fergal. I'd be fascinated watching Scotstown, how they walk the dotted line. how they plan that simultaneously. One player's going one way, another's coming the other way, and all of a sudden you'll see a man that was due maybe to mark Kieran Hughes is suddenly caught in no man's land because he can't get across to the opposite side to cover for the likes of Rory Beggan that's breaking forward.
Scotstown is the best team in the country at that transition around the middle third. They're absolutely phenomenal at it. They must have done serious coaching in around that, because even when you're watching it, and I'm watching them myself from the quarterfinal, I still can't put my finger on what exactly they're doing. It's that dynamic. It's unbelievable to watch. So it is, and as I said, they're the best team in the country at it. In terms of Rory, I do remember one of the goals last year that was conceded. Rory was well off his line, and I hope he doesn't have that scar, because what I would love to see is Rory still doing what he does, coming out with that, coming out of his lane, and given that Rory has loads of attributes. He's a great man at giving a quick ball inside. His passes are 100% accuracy. He obviously poses that threat of a long two-pointer shot as well. And, he's a big man around the presence too for the opposition kick out. So I would love to see Rory still coming off the line. And I think the only team that I've seen for a short period of time that pushed up on Rory was Neil Conlon, the Donegal champions. They pushed up on Rory as soon as he crossed the halfway lane. They pushed up on him. They're the only team that I've seen doing that. Every other team seems to drop off and let Rory have. He's too have possession of the ball. He's too dangerous for that. If it were me, I'd be pushing up on him as soon as he crossed the halfway line. But I'd love to see him coming out and keep doing what he does very well when Scotstown are in possession. That's being a part of that attack.
I just want to, can I come in there, Sean?
Yeah.
That one. Yeah. No, I think actually, I look at this Kilcoo team and a couple of things you mentioned there. I think Darrell Brannigan, their centre back, is the guy they're going to want for those short kickouts. They'll want him on the ball all the time. And maybe the likes of Anthony Morgan as well, who's a bit of a Rolls Royce footballer in midfield. He could come up against Neil McCaffrey. Aaron Morgan would be the holding guy, maybe with Gavin McPhillis marking him. But I think Eugene Brannigan is going to be the guy that's going to come out from the full forward line. Eugene Brannigan, of course, with the tights, he's quite distinctive. He plays with Down as well. I think he's going to come out around that middle. He's probably the free spirit of this Kilcoo team. They're quite structured. They all know their job, but he's kind of got that. Well, you don't know, Eugene could get sent off, or he could score the win and go. You just don't know what to get with Eugene, but he's kind of got that X factor. He's a mystery wrapped in an enigma kind of fella. But he could come out, I think, and meet Rory Begg and be buzzing around him and annoying him and kind of just trying to kind of get in his face a little bit. That's an interesting one. As regards Kieran Hughes is another interesting one for me. I know I might be jumping in here, but he's played that number 5 role. And he's and all the elder statesmen of Scotland have let the Tommy Mallons and the Max Maguires and the Nicky Sherlocks and the Dara Murrays and the Donncha Conleys run at the teams and soften them up, kind of like in the first 6 rounds of a boxing match. And as we go into the championship rounds, then we see Kieran Hughes kind of ghosting up more and more in towards that, and he could get that primary possession like he did against Inniskeen out in the Pat McGrain side. When the game was in the melting pot, he won that kick out when they needed it. But I wonder, will he play in that number 5 position? Or will Kilcoo target him and maybe put a Michael Rooney on him to kind of put him on the back foot? It's an intriguing one. And I think maybe, and would Kieran Hughes maybe go into that full forward line and become a target man in there and just throw the cat amongst the pigeons? I don't know. It's interesting because he's done that number 5 role and nobody's really kind of pinned him down. And I know Rooney, maybe someone like Rooney would be a mismatch in the height stakes on the kickouts. But certainly on the legs front, Rooney would run all day, and I don't know, Kieran would want that. It's an intrigue. There's so many little intriguing battles, and never before have one-on-one battles been so important. There's lots of things going on there.
I can't see Scotstown changing too much, Fergal, of what they've already done. I think they'll still have, like you mentioned there, Michael Rooney, who's a serious goal threat as well, and a very dynamic wing half back. Now, you're right, he's full of pace, and Kilcoo probably might, if Kieran Hughes has a weak point, it's that lack of pace maybe they might do that, but I see Scotland being far too cute for that, and maybe giving Kieran that leadership role in around that defensive structure, and then push forward when he needs to, and then they rotate that between him and Darren and the likes. But you talked a wee bit there, I suppose, about Tommy Mallon. There's concerns around him, his availability, and then, with that dynamic now changing, did he just replace him with the likes of Nicky Sherlock coming straight in, or did he change the structure of the team? It's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens, but man markups are going to be critically important.
I take it, is that an injury concern for Tommy, Kieran?
Yeah, I think the hamstring, he came off again, Newbridge, the last day out, so he did, and it didn't look too bad because he sort of jogged his way off, and you were hopeful that it wasn't too bad, and they got him off in time. But what I'm hearing is that he is a concern now for Saturday.
Right, so that would be a slight knockback when you consider the form that he has been on, and being one of those younger players that we talked about coming into this team. You've been there preparing, getting ready for games. Fergal, I'm sure maybe you've been similar, maybe on any of the coaching you've been doing. These 2 weeks, how important is it to focus or over-focus on your opposition, or to focus more on what you've been doing and doing right? Yeah, there's matchups you want to get, but you can't get over-consumed either, I take it, by your opposition. Your primary focus has to be still on what you were doing and doing right.
Yeah, look at to get that correct is very hard.
Yeah.
So they'll have to obviously look at Kilcoo, and they've definitely learned from Kilcoo's last year because the whole structure has changed. We know that, and they have taken that loss very well because they've restructured the whole team, and it has worked, and it has worked very well. Obviously, they'll be looking at Kilcoo, but I just hope that Scotstown, like for Fergal, with commentating on them, watching them as well, like they're very much a team on the front foot. When they get the ball, they're all encompassed and trying to get forward. I just hope they don't, give the ball up, sit back in that defence and invite that Kilcoo team on. Perhaps they might have to do that as well in terms of that defensive structure. But what they've been doing thus far has been exceptional and has been working for them. So I just hope that they continue concentrating on themselves and really focus on when they have the ball to be as dangerous a threat, and put Kilcoo in the back foot early on as well.
Yeah, I actually agree. Listen, watching this Ulster Club Championship, what comes to mind for me is the intermediate semi-final between Carrick Emmets and Glenullen. And you have to go and win this game. You can't sit back. You can't defend the lead. You saw with Newbridge in the last, from the 53rd minute on, they scored 1-5 with a breeze. And it'll be breezy. There's no doubt about it. The weather's, it's December, like you're going to have a wind and all that kind of stuff. But I saw with Carrick when they had their lead 5 or 6 points and they had a free and they went backwards with the free, you got to go for the jugular. And look, we're talking about a Scotstown team who have 24 Mick Duffy Cups. We're talking about a Kilcoo side who have, I think they've won 23 titles as well, the Frank O'Hare Cup and down. So they know how to win, and they're going to go and win. You have to go and win a final. You have to go and win a final. And I don't think, and that there are going to be no regrets from either side, but certainly not from Scotstown. Scotstown will look back on 15 and 18 and 23, and it will be gnawing at them a little bit. But you can't have regrets. And I think all the things you said, Rory Beggan, well, he'll be targeted, and you know that, but sure, he's always been, he's expecting that. I think the young lads, it's a big day for the younger players on the Scotstown side, who have been a revelation. Like, I mean, we all walked probably away, and David McCaig spent a long time thinking about where do we go next with this Scotstown team. Will he be the man to lead the charge? Massive credit to him for what he's done. But after that defeat last year, there was a really go back to the back and say, where are we going here? But he was introduced these young lads. They've been a revelation. I wondered in the Inniskeen county final how the young lads would operate. Tommy Mallon scored 7 points, got man of the match. Of course, we have Conor McCarthy coming back from injury too. I'm not sure do you think he'll start or not, Kieran? He'll come to that. But I do think these young lads will be coming up against a very seasoned outfit in Kilcoo. They will challenge them in ways they've probably never experienced before at club football. And it'll be interesting to see, like, if these lads who have never put a foot wrong since put on that blue jersey for Scotstown, if they've meet that challenge, I think Scotstown are in great shape.
Yeah, there's no reason to suggest they won't meet the challenge, because every challenge that they've met, they've overcome thus far. They've been exceptional, and they've been that bright spark that Scotstown needed, and they've brought that pace and youth and bravery and everything that goes with that. The older you get, the more reserved you get, you tend to be more cautious. But young boys, no, they just want to get forward and get as much on the ball as they can. But one thing I will say around experience, you're dead right to acknowledge Scotstown's experience. It's just unbelievable. I remember during commentary, Fergal, the last day out, when they were hit with that 1-5, everybody was a wee bit in shock. And I did say during comedy, look at the experience in there. They'll go in, sit down, just calm the whole thing and regroup and just settle down, and we'll go again. Exactly in post-match interview, Rory Beggan actually said that's exactly what they did. So they'll, in terms of last year, I know we all keep talking about it. It's a completely different game, different rules. They'll be tunnel vision, completely zoned in this year. No point worrying about last year. It's gone, it's done, it's dusted. It's all about.
And remember as well, Kieran, Scotstown beat Kilcoo the year before with that Rory Beggan free. So this is the trilogy. It's the Ali, Fraser fight. Yeah. So who's going to be Fraser? Who's going to be Ali? They're going to find out.
It's the rumble in the jungle. It's the boxing in the boxing athletic grounds. That's what we're going to have this weekend. There's one piece of the jigsaw here that maybe we need to bring into it. And I noted it at the start. This is a Monaghan final because we have a certain Clontubright man in charge of Kilcoo here. The knowledge he will have of the Scotstown team, not only having maybe come up against them on the playing field, but being a Monaghan man and knowing what they've done within the county and that as well. And he was there last year as part of the management team, I think, under Conor Laverty. Martin Corey, of course, and he's moving up into manager. And I must say, even for him to come out and speak, he's very quiet. It's very rarely you get an interview with him, Fergal, that he was available and come out to chat at the media night that night as well. I'm not saying that's a surprise. It's part of the duty to do it, but he was fairly open in his conversation.
Yeah, and he knows David. They would have played football together, and he knows, it's interesting. Matty O'Rourke trained Glenn. There's always this kind of overlap. They know each other well anyway. They would have come across, a lot of the lads would have come across each other in Down. Now, talking to Michael Rooney actually as well on the way out off the hotel, and very sound guy as well. Looking forward to it. Everyone was in great form, in fairness, at the launch. But look, all that will be forgotten. And it's a game of football. These lads, they know each other inside out. They watch each other. They play at this level. And I do think, obviously, Martin's one of the top coaches in the country. But it's an aside, and it's a bit of an interesting thing. But I think if Conor Laverty was over the team, he'd know just as much about Scotstown as well, because this is the level these lads are at. They would be watching stuff. They would have numbers and stats, and each guy would know his job within. Kieran, you'd know more about this, but it's almost academic. It's just a nice aside. It's an interesting one, and it's great to talk to Marty as well. And sure, he's doing great stuff around the country as well.
Just a wee bit on Marty. I would have worked with Marty a couple of times, and for me, he's the best coach in Ireland. He is just a phenomenal coach, and he always wanted to step up into management, and he had loads of options after the Mead gig as well, and as a coach, but he always wanted that manager's role, and his depth and knowledge and his communication skills are just unbelievable. I could watch Marty coaching and I could say, yeah, well, look, I do that. But it's the way he communicates it. It's top level stuff. And that's what sets him apart from the ordinary coach, to the good coach, to the top tier coach. He's just exceptional. And from a personal point of view, I'm delighted for Marty that he's got to an Ulster final with Kilcoo, because a lot of pressure going in there, taking on them big guns. A lot of pressure went inside that camp as well, So he has handled it superbly, and he's got them to the Ulster final, to the promised land where they want to be. And whether or not he gets over the line, well, time will tell. But I genuinely think there'll only be a kick of a ball in it this Saturday.
Marty is great. He makes a great stay. I seen him when he was involved with the underage and go games and kind of when he says that he made a great speech to lads at the end. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. And he's great. He is a brilliant coach at all levels, actually. Lads really respond to him. So it always struck me when he said that, and it kind of epitomizes club. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. It's all about the senior team at the end,
Absolutely. It's interesting, Kieran, how big of a dynamic change would that be to go from being the coach to the manager then? And obviously then he has to have a coach to come in underneath him. When you're in that role, in that position, obviously the buck stops with the manager. It's his call at the end of the day. But there has to be a massive amount of trust, I would have thought, between manager and coach.
Yeah, that's the word I'd use, trust. You have to be able to take a man and be say that you trust that can deliver your game model, your values and stuff, the principles of play, and that's critically important. But coming from Marty's experience as being a top tier coach for the last 10 years, he has all that knowledge of all sort of game styles and game principles of play, etc. And he is all the transition from coach to management would be very simple from Martin's perspective because he has all that knowledge, and then it's only decision making after that. What I want to do, what's the best. So you can only have a game principle of play and it's based on the players you have. So Marty would have used the league and down to establish that, and of course, the players would have had a huge input in that. And then it's just making decisions after that. Management is all about decisions, making them a majority of decisions accurately for most of the time. And he'd have no problem with that as well.
Has Kilcoo been tested coming into this final? I know they were comfortable over Aaron Gales. When you compare, and we talk so much on Scotstown, what they've been through on their journey, would that, I'm not going to say it'd be a fear, but would it be a concern that they haven't got that one big push to the line that's been required in the championship game?
Yeah, well, I definitely don't think they've been pushed as hard as Scotstown have, and that's for certain. And Fergal used to battle hard at the start of the interview here, and that's exactly it. And no amount of training can replace that battle hardened that both Inniskeen brought, and obviously the last day out again, Newbridge them 2 extra times. Like they stand you. They stand you. Now, the other side of that is the injury concern that you have as well. But generally speaking, that match sharp, match fitness, that all stands you, and it's going to be critically important come the last 5 or 10 minutes when Scotstown know that they've been tested and know in the back of their minds, deep down somewhere there, that they've come over that challenge as well. That's the important thing.
Absolutely. Fergal's getting very excited about it all. He took a tumble there on us, so he did. But I think
practice it. That's how we stretch. Myself and Kieran do a lot of stretching before commentary. And you know that. People don't see what goes on behind the scenes.
the dose is right. Fergal, it's one you're looking forward to, no doubt. It's brilliant to have football, and I know this championship has been pushed out by the extra week because of what occurred in Healy Park and getting that epic game in the box at Athletic Grounds. But to be having this to look forward to now, 2 weeks out from Christmas and whatever it may bring going into the new year, there's a short gap, and then we're into Dr. McKenna Cup. It's just something that shortens the winter, isn't it?
Yeah, it is brilliant, and it's great teams. I think it is a pity, and there's no way around this, that we're probably playing one of the most important games in these guys' career, probably the worst conditions you could probably pick time of year. But anyway, that's a story for another day. I'm looking forward to some big battles though, Sean. I think Damien McCarthy is going to pick up Paul Devlin. Kieran, you think so? Paul Devlin seems to be their main man. He's won 3 in the county final. I think the only time Kilcoo were really tested was at Clonduff. They should have been taken out that day. They missed a 2-pointer at the end, but after that it was pretty routine all the way through. But Paul Devlin against Damien McCarthy, and Damien just goes about his business, and a great chat with him. In fact, like all great podcasts or great interviews, lads, when you put the microphone away, you have the best of chats. But we were talking about farming and blue tongue and different things. But no, but Damien will go about his business. He'll pick up Paul Devlin. Looking forward to that midfield battle. I'm interested. Will they mark with Shane Carey and Daryl Brannigan? Maybe, there's a few interesting points there. Jack McCarran be picked up probably by Niall Brannigan, who's a real tight man marker. And then where Darren Hughes was brilliant against Newbridge. He went back into the 60. He was back in his own half back line, filling that gap. He was in setting up. God, he put in some shift and I expect something. I don't know. He could roam between the half forward line and the half back. Who knows? Or maybe will he play as full forward? But look, I can't wait for it. I just think, for a team like Scotstown who are so dominant, I just think there's a lot of goodwill behind them here in Monaghan. We're all kind of rooting for them. I don't know if the same would be said for Kilcoo, maybe, but it's irrelevant to Kilcoo. They thrive on them against the world. But certainly, as representatives go, we couldn't have a better one in Scotstown in this county final. Wishing them all the best. And I think the hand of history will rest lightly this time. I hope And I think they could just get over and get this Seamus McFerrin Cup for the first time since 1989.
Yeah, you were nodding in agreement there, Kieran. Just a little thing that Fergal touched on there, Darren Hughes and the performances he's putting in. We've mentioned Rory, we mentioned Kieran Hughes, Shane Carey, these guys. Again, something about Scotstown, and this comes back to management. The trust is placed on those lads when they cross the white line to do the right thing at the right time in the right moment. Like Darren Hughes is making that decision on field himself when he thinks he needs to be back, when he thinks he needs to be in the middle, or when he thinks he needs to be in the forward line. That's not an order from the sideline, I would argue. That's leadership on the field.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about that. Like, and who would ever argue with a decision Darren Hughes makes in terms of his experience? But you're right, the leadership in Scotstown is just phenomenal. Like we haven't even mentioned Ryan O'Toole there yet either. Coming in that leadership for as well, and they're just blessed with that dynamic between youth and experience, and the real hunger that the experienced personnel within that team is bringing. The young boys are just feeding into it. We didn't mention Max Maguire either. He had a man of the match performance during the Monaghan Championship. Donnacha Connolly at wing half back. These boys are only 19, 20 years of age. They're all still under 20s. Francis Maguire, Matty Maguire, obviously Tommy Mallon, and Nicky Sherlock, comes off the bench. Very unlucky. Had a Stanton game against Latin and picked up an injury. I just couldn't get back in. That gives you a sense of the depth of talent that's inside this group. And I'm on Fergal's side here, or I genuinely believe, because of them attributes and that dynamic within that team, that they will get over the line this Sunday. They've nothing to fear.
I wonder, just before we go, I have to say, Matty and Francis Maguire, unsung hero, they always score. They scored 3 points each against Newbridge. They're consistently on the scoreboard, consistently doing a job for Scott, and sometimes get overlooked. And that is the thing about Scotstown. Players like that, they have such quality of players who we don't have maybe as household names in county. But I wonder, maybe you, Sean, have a thoughts on this? Will Conor McCarthy start, or will he bring him on?
Oh, well, I suppose it's like everything. He's had him in the role of bringing him on whenever he was required. I know he come on towards the tail end of the county final, and speaking to Conor afterwards, he wasn't expecting extra time, and his body did pay for that extra period of time, which seen him then not featuring for the next run of games, being brought back in again, and you would have thought. We can nearly name the changes. I can see the team sheet for Scotstown, and I can immediately name the changes. And maybe it's a little luck thing that they're doing. The Kieran Hughes retains the same number, but he's going to start, and certain players have certain numbers on the back, and they're going to start. So I would have thought they're not going to upset that too much. I would have thought, Kieran, in that regard, if Conor can be kept in reserve to be sprung on, like what a man to be bringing in.
There's no doubt about it, and I just don't think they would love to start him, but I just think the body will allow it, because the impact of the county final was detrimental to him. He was very sore after. I know that, talking to a few people close at Scotstown. But if there's 20 minutes in him or 10 minutes in him, you'll definitely see him. I just hope he can have the impact that he had in the county final, which ultimately was the spark that got Scotstown over the line that day, because they looked dead and buried at a time. But that's what they have. They have this resilience that you just didn't see last year. They have this determination and hunger and resilience. And when you have that mixed with the talent and depth of experience to have, like, I just genuinely, and the lady luck that they do or are getting during games as well, I just genuinely believe they have enough to win this game on Saturday. I just hope they do get over the line.
Well, listen, I suppose with us being in County Monaghan and this being the Monaghan way, our hearts are always going to rule our heads. But I think we've done enough, maybe clearing on it there, that the heads maybe could match the hearts on this occasion as well, to say hopefully all going well. It could be a Scotstown success this weekend in that Ulster final. We will, of course, have full live coverage coming to you from the box at Athletic Grounds, and the two gentlemen that joined me here, Fergal and Kieran, will be down there. I take it'll be an early trip down, get in, get set up, Fergal, and take it all in. The box at Athletic Grounds, I must say, it's a fantastic venue for the game, a fantastic venue to watch it. Usually be in behind the glass walls. I know I'm very familiar with the commentary box down in the Athletic Grounds, but it's the perfect setting.
It's a great setup. It's a brilliant pitch. Probably Ulster very reliant on it, as we've seen there with the weather we're having. But it'll take whatever the weather throws at it. It's a brilliant venue. The crowd are close to it. It's as close well, Clonus is my favourite place to commentate in the match, but obviously it's a very. I'll be glad of the glass maybe on Saturday night. It could be chilly enough, but no, looking forward to it. Kieran will bring the coffees, and we'll be ready to rock. We'll have a. I think the game will live up to it and up to the billing. It's just going to be great. It's a great occasion. It's a brilliant occasion, and Ulster do great football. There's no doubt about it, and they run a great show.
And just finally, Ferg or Kieran, just to yourself, the weather. How big a factor? I haven't even looked ahead to see what's expected this weekend. How big a factor could that be? We know the pitch is going to hold up, that there won't be a concern in that regard. But coming down, as Fergal noted, you're going to have a breeze, you're going to have a win. The toss of the coin at the start of the game could be the win and the losing of this.
Well, if we go back to 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now it is at this stage, when the first game against Newbridge was up in Omagh, and we looked at the conditions that day in terms of the underfoot conditions, they weren't conducive to good running football, and that did not suit Newbridge. They dodged a bullet that day, because when they got to Armagh, all of a sudden the pitch is conducive to good running games, and it was effective. But the wind that day, like we were only gauging it because we're protected by the elements, but we're only gauging it with the flags blowing. It was a massive impact, because that 1-5 without replaying the last 5 or 6 or 7 minutes was mainly 2 pointers. I know they got in for the goal, but it was the wind that give them that wee bit of impetus to get forward and drive forward and to take them long shots on, and it's had a huge impact in the game. So it did a huge impact, and there's no doubt Saturday it's given a showery day, a wet day, and of course it's going to have conditions around secondary possessions around midfield and stuff like that. Generally the ball sticks to hand, and sometimes it'll spill now with the weather. Of course it's going to have conditions, but again it's that resilience and eagerness to win a 50-50 ball that Scotstown have in abundance that will do them no harm anyway, Sean. The conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking forward to it. The best of luck to yourselves on commentary. Best of luck to Scotstown. And just a reminder to you, catch more of our episodes here of the Monaghan Way. This is our 20th episode. There's 27 previous ones for you there. I know the last one actually was a chat with Jonathan Douglas, a Clonus that played Premier League football. Fascinating chat with him. We mentioned Darren Hughes a couple of times here. We had a lovely sit down with Darren when he called time on his inter-county career and just the whole background into his football, and so many more to check in for yourselves there.